Hello and welcome to TMRE at Home here on All Things Insights in advance of TMRE. Hope you enjoyed that video. We've got 3 great days, full days of content set up for you. Today is AI and tech. Tomorrow is the intersection of insights and analytics. And day 3 is Insights ROI. What a nice grouping of themes for us. So we worked those out a while back. Katie Flash and Jenny Gacy have done a great job of producing this event, and we've got a ton of content coming to you. We're going to actually go through pretty rapidly. We're set to actually be over by a couple of minutes, so please keep that in mind. But we're going to do our best to save some time, and we're going to do that right now by handing it over to the first panel, which is moderated by David Seuss. So without further ado, I'll hand it to David and his panel.
Well, hello, everyone. Thanks for coming. We're excited to be your first event in the TMRE at Home sessions here. We'll try to live up to our responsibility to make it useful and fun for you. We have a great panel here, experts in many fields who are working with AI and generative AI. I'll start by introducing Northern Light, and then I'm going to go around the panelists and ask each person to introduce themselves. So I'm David Seuss. I'm from Northern Light. We build knowledge management systems for use in market research, market intelligence, and competitive intelligence applications. We have 45 clients who are all leaders in their field, major brands in many different industries. Our use of Gen AI is question answering for market research and business strategy. Our users might ask a question like, will consumers pay more for sustainable products? How do consumers pick life insurance companies? What is our competitors' positioning in this marketplace? And our application responds with answers to questions like that. Now I would like to turn it over to Abhinav from Escalent and ask him to do his introduction. Then we're going to go to Kasera, and then to Oksana, and then to Yogesh. Take it away, Abhinav.
Thank you so much, David. Good to be here. I'm Abhinav. I work with Escalent, which is a global advisory research and analytics firm. We specialize in multiple industries, methodologies, and techniques. I work with the organization as a senior vice president, and I take care of artificial intelligence and secondary product centers of excellence.
Oksana, or rather, no, Kasera.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kasera Weinrich. I am a principal consultant for future of work strategy at ADP, and I am, very involved from a generative AI and artificial intelligence perspective on the future of work, specifically within our industry and the industries that we support. I'm also currently studying anthropology and artificial intelligence in a PhD program and keeping that human AI synergy research going as well.
Oksana.
Hello, everyone. Oksana Sobol. I lead insights at the Clorox company, which is the maker of brands like Brita, Glad, Kingsford, Burt's Bees, Clorox, and others. Gen AI implementation at Clorox is broad. One particular use case that I would single out is innovation, where Gen AI comes to shine in tasks like trend sensing, assist with ideation and optimization in innovation discovery.
Yogesh.
Hi, everyone. My name is Yogesh Chavda. I'm a faculty member at the University of South Carolina's Business School, and I teach classes in marketing to undergraduates and MBA students. At the university level, generative AI has come in with a storm, as you can imagine. And what we're doing basically is we're educating all our undergraduates and MBA students in the use of generative AI tools so that they are well equipped before they even enter the corporate landscape, if you want to call it that, so that they're able to actually be prepared on how to use generative AI tools in the workplace.
All right. Well, with that, let me ask the panel a question, and maybe I'll ask Abhinav to take the first answer here. Which aspect of Gen AI implementation has proved to be the steepest learning curve for either the organizations that you work with or the users?
Interesting question, David. In fact, to be able to address that, I would like to spare a couple of seconds to talk about how we have been leveraging AI and Gen AI. Being a market research and business research firm, we have been looking at AI in a very cautious manner, making sure that we are approaching the tool in a very safe, ethical, and transparent manner, and doing some controlled POCs. And over the last year, based on these POCs and tool beds, we have been able to start leveraging AI and Gen AI for multiple tasks in research and analysis projects. For example, conducting foundational desk research to be able to get functional knowledge about a particular domain, generating images which might be used as part of imagery in specific project, transcribing AV recordings, translating content from one language to another, generating audio and video clips, which often form part of deliverables that we share with clients. We're also looking at open encoding for verbatims and doing that in an automated manner, as well as smart probing based on answers shared by specific respondents. And then, of course, there is language assistance, grammar check, summarization of text, and thematic and sentiment analysis, which are areas where we have looked at it. In doing these POCs and tool tests, I think the two principal challenges have been, one, figuring out which tool is the best bet. And I think what we have learned as an organization is you cannot have a global maxima. You just need to find a tool that's effective and efficient enough for the specific use cases that you have in mind, and then figure out how to make the most out of it. So you have to make do with local maximas. Thus, I would say that in AI or Gen AI, perfect is definitely the enemy of good. The second area where I feel the learning curve is going to be steep is getting people, employees as well as clients, comfortable with AI and Gen AI. There are a lot of concerns and apprehensions people have around security, privacy, etc. And change anyway is always hard to accept and implement. So it requires a certain amount of upskilling and knowledge building to be able to have people change the way they go about doing their day-to-day activities and break that force of habit in terms of how they do research and analysis. So those are two areas I would say are the steepest learning curves. Of course, there is always the possibility of trying to learn tools and use them more effectively and efficiently. But I would say that's not specific to AI or Gen AI. That's equally applicable to any new technology we're trying to experiment with.
Okay, it's very interesting. Kasera or Oksana, would you like to add anything to that? Kasera first.
So not so much in responding to any particular troubles with implementation, because I do think my organization specifically takes the commitment to releasing these products, they take it very seriously, ethically, responsibly, securely, very similar to Abhinav's organization's approach. And, at the end of the day, the lessons learned and the implementation of this technology across platforms, I think it's very interesting to stand in this position right now and see how generative AI and AI in general is actually a horizontal across all elements of business strategy. It's a thread that is weaving through everything. And so it's not just one element of the business that's being impacted by this, it's so much. And so it's a big task, but it's really incredible, the position that we're in. It feels very similar to being able to look back on other technological revolutions and understand that we're on the precipice of something really great. And there's no finish line. So implementing right now, it is just a moment in time. And this is going to be something ongoing. So the lessons learned, the opportunity to innovate, I think they've all been really positive and awesome experiences within my organization and from my perspective.
I love your there is no finish line. That's just a great observation. And when there is no finish line, the right strategy is often make rapid small steps and frequent adjustments. Rapid small steps seems like the right strategy here. Oksana, do you have anything you would like to add to that?
What surprised me the most is the outsized role that company culture and norms play in Gen AI implementation. It looks like a technical question at first brush, but a lot of the biggest decisions will be decided by company culture and beliefs. For example, what information will you allow and disallow from being injected into Gen AI as source material? Who will have access? Who will decide who will have access? Or even things like what one company might call desirable creative capability, another company might call an undesirable confabulation behavior. It is the exact same behavior on the part of the machine, but it is the company culture and norms that sort of passes that judgment. So that's been an interesting aspect of implementation. And on a very practical level, in terms of a human learning curve, as far as skills, I would say prompting is the one that requires a lot of attention to get the most value.
Mm-hmm. Do you let your users write their own prompts? Are the prompts encoded into the system, and maybe the users add a question?
For us, users write their own prompts, and we try to provide best practices and libraries.
Okay. So Yogesh, I have a question for you. How do you see the role of human intuition and experience changing as Gen AI becomes pervasive in the workplace? Do we still need people?
Yes, we will still need people, but what we will need people who know how to use AI tools. And I think that's the big, message I'd like to make sure everybody hears, because there are still a lot of people who are very reluctant to try and use AI tools, right? And there's a hesitancy in terms of, am I doing it right? And, in the market research industry in general, we tend to err on the side of precision and accuracy. And we expect almost that we will see the same kind of, information being outputted from any, Gen AI tool to give us, precise information. But that's not the case. The analogy I use is just like in, last mile logistics, where Gen AI tools will get you to the last mile, but to get through to the last mile, you need human intuition and experience to help you get that precision that you need to complete your task or your work. I'll want to give two very quick examples. One from the university level, one from with some of my clients I work with on the corporate side. At the university level, we've been running a bunch of tests to see how different tools operate and what kind of precision are we getting from them. And by and large, there are some large language models that do give you a little bit more precision, but not by a whole lot, right? So at the end of the day, if people are saying, oh, it's not giving me precise information and therefore I won't use it, that's the wrong mindset. So I would say that's a bigger implementation issue, which is the mindset issue that comes in the way of actually, advancing things. On the corporate side, I will say, at a company I was working at a couple of years ago when we were implementing, the big question that came in is, how do I know if the information I'm getting is sufficiently right or pointing me in the right direction? Mm-hmm. You have to bring an experience back into that conversation. So it's not a precision question, it's a direction question. And what I'm finding is that if you're getting pointed in the right direction through Gen AI tools, then it's up to you as the user to figure out what do you need to do next to advance the conversation within your team or across the organization, basically.
Are you familiar with I'm sure you are, the Harvard Business School BCG study that was published last fall? I think that's one of the most interesting ones. For those of you who don't know, BCG loaned Harvard 758 consultants. I'm an ex-BCG manager, and the billing rate value of that study was something between $15 million and $30 million. I mean, it was just mind-boggling to me that they would do that. And they divided the consultants up into two groups. One group used ChatGPT to execute 18 business strategy assignments. The other group was told don't use it and do the assignments. And the group using ChatGPT finished their task 40% faster with 25% higher quality. I mean, it really does add to generative AI has a dramatic impact on the amount and quality of work. Which now leads me to another question, which is how do we measure the ROI of Gen AI? I think that I'm getting that question from my clients right now, and I would love to hear all of your inputs because I think I need to take notes while you talk. So Abhinav, do you want to pick that one up and run with it?
Sure, David. But first, before that, I 100% agree with what Yogesh mentioned about the precision versus the direction. I think overall, when it comes to AI, I view them and our company views them as accelerators when it comes to research, analysis, and insights. They are taking us to the end goal faster than any particular project or assignment. And to that end, that kind of, I'd say, gets linked to the ROI question as well. For us as a market research organization and an advisory firm, we are looking at AI tools to be able to make us more effective and efficient, get in some productivity and efficiency gains, and in general, be able to digest a greater volume of information and unearth linkages that might not be visible to the naked eye. So from that perspective, we consider ROI as measured by A, the number of hours we are saving in terms of human effort towards research and project execution. B, the dollars that we might be saving by doing some tasks on AI tools as opposed to paying them to human partners and vendors. And C, any net revenue that we might be generating based on net new products that we are creating that leverage AI or Gen AI as their foundation stone.
Okay. Oksana, can you add anything to that? I mean, you're inside a company that marketing questions are being asked all the time, and if the role of the generative AI is to improve the quality of the marketing programs and business decisions that are originating from that, how in the world would you ever tell?
That's right. And yet you do need to tell in order for Gen AI to graduate from the status of a toy into a status of a serious business tools, because we all need to know how tools that we invest in deliver ROI. So it is very early days. Abhinav mentioned some examples. Other examples would be cycle time reduction. For example, our innovation discovery process time has been cut by 3x. But then there are questions like top line, right? And that is harder to measure than aspects like productivity. But are we getting, we see that we are getting more ideas. We think we're getting better ideas, and using the innovation example, some of these ideas are now in market. So it will take some time to understand, are they in fact better ideas from the perspective of market reality? And so we'll need to continue building and testing these use cases, because each use case needs to have some thinking built into it in terms of what are the KPIs that you are going to capture.
Are you getting pressure from your senior management to justify the Gen AI projects in some sort of quantitative way, or is there like a grace period right now where you can be experimental and not have to do the calculations and claim that you saved $1 million?
There is a period when it is understood that we are trying different things, and there might not all of them might work out equally wonderfully, and there's openness to that. But yes, there's, I think we all need to be building in thinking about KPIs right from the start, even if we're not able to fully measure them all from the start.
Okay. Casero, do you want to tell us a little bit about how your organization approaches the ROI question?
So I won't be able to dive into the specific, tracking of ROI and how that's being done, but I do want to just point back to the elements of humanity that are kind of top of mind in this specific conversation, and how giving access to the appropriate tools, and by positioning yourself as an organization that is innovative and willing to try new and emerging technologies, there are soft ROI elements that need to be considered as well when it comes not just to productivity, but engagement and retention and the long-term mindset of your associates, and understanding that you're dedicated to their skills development and their growth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yogesh, I would love to hear your input on this too.
Yeah, so typically we talk about AI in the context of generative AI, right? But there are other AI tools as well. So I'll give you an example from my last corporate job where we deployed a prediction model, a churn prediction model that basically was predicting which customers would likely stay with with us, or those customers that would churn out. And we were updating the data every week for the sales team so they could see exactly who to go talk to and basically reduce the degree of churn. We got to a point within 6 months of deployment of the tool that we were basically making setting financial targets where we would reduce churn by almost 4 to 10%, which was a big deal for this particular customer. So when we talk about AI tools, right? There are two things I would highly recommend everybody think about. Number one, and what we just heard right now is is that you think about it from an efficiency space plane, right? Time saved, hours saved, etc. That's all well and good. But the flip side is actually what's the value add that you can also get. So when you think about the value add, it can actually be a revenue driver for you. It can also be a profit driver for you. And importantly, if you think about things that you want to do but you can't do, some of these AI tools can actually do it for you. And it's a question of how you go about setting up not just the prompts, but you can even design custom GPT tools now that can enable you to do that. And we can talk about that later if we have time. So.
Yeah, you bring up an example, which I would say is from the data science field, mathematically analyzing churn data, finding the drivers of churn data, saying if we manipulate those drivers, and to me that is, it is AI, but it's also data science. Mm-hmm. And I always have envied the data scientists. They've had an ability to pick the problems that are amenable to their skills and to quantify the benefit, making more loans, having fewer loan defaults, having less churn. I mean, very, very mathematical and precise. But Gen AI is a different animal. Someone asked, well, how is my competitor positioning themselves in this market? And they get a report back from the market research and market intelligence that's in the platform. And now they're a better informed product manager than they were before. Measuring the ROI on that is a challenge. And how I'm not sure the example from data science is, in a way, it's the easy problem. The hard problem is the generative AI. What are you telling your students, Yogesh, about how to approach this sort of softer ROI problem?
Well, look, I think we all need to come to the recognition that, the lines between, let's say, the softer side of market research and data science is going to start blurring even further, right?
Yeah.
The students need to know how to be able to navigate both sides of it. So on the softer side of it, it's a question of knowing what is it that you're really solving for, what problem are you really trying to solve for? And if you're able to do it in a manner that enables you to get say 60% or 70% of your answer, that's your win right there. Okay. Right? Or alternatively, like you're trying to do some market research in a very hard to reach industry where you don't have that many, your incidence rates are low. Using generative AI tools, you can actually get there without having to go spend 6 weeks recruiting, potentially trying to recruit a sample that's hard to recruit, right? So there are different ways to think about this. It's not just one way, is what I'm saying.
So Seth, I wonder if we have any questions from the audience that we should take some time to address.
Yeah, looking through, it's a balance here of, am I meant to be focused on cost savings? Am I meant to be focused on value add? We know the answer is both. But for those that need to make that choice, the questions are around where do we want to lean based on what context?
Okay. So that was the first question, right? Should we be focused on cost savings or on value add? So would anyone like to take that one?
I'm happy to start. Please. So I think in pointing back to the note that you pulled out of my first answer regarding fast steps and then iterating, failing fast, continuing to try, I think small fast wins when it comes to this technology is going to be the best way to increase adoption, to drive business value. Cost savings will absolutely come, But if you can make a quick win, my perspective is get the technology in the appropriate hands, allow them to create some value, and then, the cost savings will absolutely be a byproduct in the future.
So I would say that in our experience, cost savings are extremely hard to quantify. And they're not believed when you do calculations like, well, we did 20 studies and, we saved an hour on each one. So that's 20 hours of time saved. It's like management goes, yeah. No one got laid off as a result. We didn't save any money. But what I find is easy is sort of the anecdotal wow factor. Someone asked, how's our competitor positioning themselves in this market? And there's a report that's generated, and it's really compelling. And it's almost like self-evident that the value add has occurred. At least that's been our experience. So it's not as hard to sell when you have the wow factor. Anybody else?
So just quickly chiming in there, I do hear Kazara's viewpoint. I think it also depends on really the nature of business a particular organization is in. If I think about it from the perspective of market and business research, everything is really solution and services driven, more often than not. If that's the case, then any kind of cost efficiency, saving in terms of human effort, reducing the out-of-pocket expenses paid to vendors, etc., those are relatively lower hanging fruits where you'll be able to see an impact sooner than later. When it comes to really revenue addition or incremental revenue, and that requires a net new product, the product development, implementation, conceptualization, all that life cycle is going to be relatively longer. So what I would want to say is it really depends on what the business is really trying to achieve through AI and what they're more focused on. Unfortunately, there is not a one-size-fits-all approach when it comes to AI. Hell, there is not even a one-size-fits-all approach when it comes to LLMs and what you want to use within generative AI. So let alone using the concept of AI and Gen AI to either reduce costs or increase revenue or both.
Mm-hmm. Oksana, does this go back to your thoughts on talent, making sure that we do provide ownership, but specifically putting in KPIs, whether or not we can wholly, manage them or measure them at this point?
I think that's right, Seth. And so I would add that KPIs should be use case driven. In any company, regardless of what they do, some use cases will focus on bottom line and some use cases will be more focused on top line. I agree with David. It is difficult enough to measure bottom line impact, but that is still easier than top line. And yet I have faith because we've seen other technologies travel through this journey. We've seen CRM, and after that, we've seen personalization, and after that, we've seen CX, which started in a similarly amorphous place of we believe we have a hypothesis, there's top line value, but it is difficult to quantify initially. It is not so difficult to quantify now. There is a range of very specific metrics attached to each of these three use cases, but if we arrived at those metrics over time through trial and error and through kind of building in the thinking, and that's why I do think it needs to be there. Even if you cannot capture it, you need to have a hypothesis about how you might be able to capture it in a more mature phase.
On that journey from toy to tool, Yogesh, where do you think we are? If you could plot the, global corporate enterprise, how close are we to really understanding what we're doing here?
So look, there's a huge diversity, right? So I would say let's say 1% of our professional population is right now dabbling and playing with Gen AI tools. And within that, I've seen some organizations that are advancing it really fast, and they're investing and they're experimenting, right? Experimentation is right now the name of the game, at least for 2024, probably into 2025 as well. But scalability will come next, because once they identify tools that actually are scalable, that's going to happen, right? So that's point number one. And to give you some very specific examples of what I'm seeing, and I've been working on some of these things myself with some of my MBA students. Imagine if you could do, we talk about focus groups, right? We talked about virtual focus groups, with, like online focus groups or whatever. But what if you could do synthetic focus groups, right? I just did an experiment with my MBA students in the last month, where we did it for a client. We basically ran it, we created personas, and we had an entire synthetic conversation happening, and we were able to identify very specific tangible learnings that the client was like, you know what, everything you're saying actually makes sense to me. And we hadn't thought about these 2 or 3 things. We think we can actually now start pursuing it. We didn't spend a cent talking to people in that case, right? And that's just one example I can quote right now. There are others as well that I can quote. Imagine if you want to do a claims development project. All of us who work in CPG knows that it takes at least a year sometimes to get claims out the door. But what if you could do it within 3 weeks or a month? That's possible today. It is possible, right? So it's accelerating. These advancements are accelerating. And all I would say to everyone is that sitting on the sidelines, hoping that you can jump on, may be too late. You need to start experimenting now, would be my recommendation to everyone.
Abhinav, how can you help folks to that place where we're ready to scale? So those are the speedboats out of us are kind of there. We can even hear some of that here versus, we're on the sidelines because the corporate walls just won't let them in. How do we bridge that gap? It sounds like a chasm.
Mm-hmm.
That's a fair question, Seth. Actually speaking, I would say it all really boils down to the business impact you're trying to drive. I believe organizations can do well if they have a particular team that's solely focused on the world of AI or Gen AI, really keeping abreast of the developments and figuring out business use cases where these tools can make a difference. That way, you can have a controlled environment and a controlled team really experimenting with those tools in a very safe and secure and ethical and transparent manner. Seeing, conceptualizing proofs of concepts or pilots, trying to establish targets for those kinds of use cases, like Oksana mentioned, measuring progress and performance of those tools against those use cases, then building a business case to be able to get stakeholder buy-in, and then, of course, having a plan for the future, being able to scale, being able to go from those humble beginnings to having AI become prevalent, integrated, and adopted through external and internal use cases. And then at the same time, also keeping an eye on the risks that it poses and what mitigation strategies are needed to be able to take care of those risks. This, in my opinion, and based on our experience in the organization, is the way to go about the journey of AI over a period of time. You start small, but you also have an internal team that's focused on it. That way, you don't have to worry about teaching 5,000 people how to use a tool. You just have to worry about 5.
Yeah, fantastic. Want to move on to another question from the community. Are there any skill sets that you would recommend the Insights community develop in order to be ready for and make the best use of AI in their roles? What training is recommended? So let's go here.
Well, what Northern Light has found is that there are 2 things that happen when you approach a generative AI solution. One is many solutions are based on retrieval augmented generation in this day and age, where there's a user query and there are documents that are relevant to that query that are pulled out that are then used by the Gen AI to generate the response. So that's retrieval augmented generation. It's becoming pretty dominant, frankly. However, it works entirely differently for the user than ChatGPT does. ChatGPT goes and consults its training data, and it generates the answer from the training data. And retrieval augmented generation operates differently, and there are things, and users who are used to ChatGPT in their personal lives or even their business lives transfer the wrong lessons to the applications that use retrieval augmented generation. So, for example, the need to select a content set before you do the query is one. And we see users stumble on that, are asking a question that doesn't use creative language, because creative language becomes part of the retrieval process then and lowers the quality of the search result, which lowers the quality of the output. And so we are finding that user training is really important. And training the users to use the peculiar nature of retrieval augmented generation versus ChatGPT. So that's one observation. We see that the best training is to show people good queries. We have a list of 150 good questions that we provide, and once people read a few of them, they sort of get it. It's quick. It's easier than writing a Boolean expression for a search engine. And the bar is lowered, but it's still worth doing the training.
If I may just jump in for a second, you know, I don't expect people to all become creators of tools and to be, prompt engineers and everything. I think that's just an unrealistic expectation. But what I do expect people to be building their skill sets around is how to interpret what they get back, right? And that human connection, that's where it comes back in, and your experience comes back in. So I'm sure Kasara will have lots to say on this one. But I would recommend that that's the place where people should start actually building their skill sets around. Kasara, I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you. Oh, beautiful layup. Thank you so much, Yogesh. Yes, I couldn't agree more. I think if this is viewed, we discussed earlier on about the resistance to using this technology, and it's because of fear. And in fact, at every point in human history, humans that adopted tools became more successful than the humans that did not. And that's what this is, right? This is a tool, this is a resource. And so I think overcoming that resistance, and I think the true skill here, of course, there are a ton of technical skills that can make you more efficient at utilizing the technology itself, regardless of what version you have access to. But the overarching skill should really just be learning agility. And I know the word agile and agility is often overused in many segments of business, but I think here it matters because the definition of that term is the ability to unlearn and relearn in these ever-changing environments. And we're at a period of time, this is exponential growth that we're looking at. We're talking about generative AI today. We could be talking about something larger, broader, cooler this time next year. And so if you stay agile, if you stay curious and you're open to new and emerging technologies and you're open to adopting the tools and resources at your disposal, I think that's the best thing that you can do as a worker in this 2024.
Exactly. Here we are in 2024. we are in the present without question, possibly even the future, which is where we need to move next. And want to thank the speakers here, Oksana and Kasara and Abhinav and Yogesh and David. What a great job moderating the session. Thank you so much.